Welcome to another edition of the Critics Corner. I'm Andrew Branca with the Waxahachie Sun, and I'm here with my colleague, Mr. David Dunn.
Southlake Style, David Dunn with Southlake Style Magazine. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing good. It's good to be back in the corner finally. So,
I know, man. You've had a very eventful past month or so.
getting COVID-19 is no fun. So it's good to be getting back to normal and doing some of the things I love like this. So
Next week on the Critics Corner, Contagion. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Outbreak. No, just kidding there. So we are doing another classic film, and next week we will actually have a current release that is out. So we're not going to tell you what it is, so you'll have to tune in to watch. So tell us about the film this week. Isn't it Fiddler on the Roof?
Yes, this week we're reviewing Fiddler on the Roof. It's based off the musical the same name by Jerry Bach and Joseph Stein. And it follows the story of a Jewish milkman named Tevye, who lives in a small village called Anatevka with his family of 5. He's got a big family. He's a little family guy going on there, little Jewish family guy. Now, obviously, way back then, pre-Russian Revolution days, the Jewish people had arranged marriages. You know, they had a matchmaker, they had parents, feeding into it, and they basically sent their daughters off to be married. But Tevye's family is in a little bit of an interesting position. His 3 daughters, Zaidel, Hodel, and Shava, basically fall in love with 3 men outside of the traditional Jewish marriage. Zaidel falling in love with a tailor, Hodel falling in love with a Bolshevik, and Shava falling in love with a Russian. And it's funny, Andy. I don't normally, you know me, I'm a big movie guy. Normally, I don't see the musicals that the movie musicals are usually inspired by, just because I'm not that much ingrained into Broadway and all that. However, this is one of the few musical movies where I have seen the live musical in addition to the actual movie. And I don't know about you, but the experience is translated so beautifully to the screen. I don't know if you've kind of had the same experience where you've watched a live musical or the movie.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, for a movie that came out in 1971, it still holds up very well today. It's just phenomenal. I actually tried out for Tevye in high school. Yeah, so one of the songs that I had to audition was, where he sings about becoming a rich man, and I didn't get the part, but I did try. So, but this is one. I'm not a big musical kind of a guy, but I love the story behind this, and it's very entertaining. I was subjugated to watch musicals when I was a kid because my mom and my sister would have a thing called Musical Friday, and to this day, I'm afraid of nuns because of the Sound of Music, and that's a whole nother story. Yeah.
I'm very curious with that story. Nuns, and I'm sure nuns and musicals don't go well together, especially when you involve Footloose into the picture.
Exactly. But this film it's really heartwarming, and you can see how much the cast really kind of gel really great together.
Absolutely, and I definitely want to talk about the music. Like you said, the music is a huge part of this movie. You mentioned "If I Were a Rich Man." Obviously, it's such a great song. It's so.
I love that song. Oh yeah.
But so many other singles in it, like "Tradition," "Do You Love Me," "The Overture." Really, there's just so many earworms in this musical that really just kind of stays in your mind long after you listen to them. Wonderful music, wonderful songs, and interestingly enough, like you said, the film did win 3 Academy Awards. One of them,
6.
3.
3? Oh, 6. Okay.
I thought it was 3.
Yes, you're right. No, it's 3.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, this film did win 3 Academy Awards. One of them was for Best Original Score or Best Adapted Score. And funny enough, this was actually the first Oscar that film composing titan John Williams ever won.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, I had no idea before watching it, but you listen to it, those strings, the flutes, the clarinets. It comes together in wonderful harmony, and it is a wonderful pairing with the picture. But I do have to say, Andy, out of all the cast members, you mentioned you auditioned as Tevier. Topol as Tevier is fan freaking tastic. like,
Well,
I
he's a hard act to follow. I mean, he's just he you don't see Topol, you see Tevye. He becomes that character. I mean, he just becomes that person, and then just he embodies everything about his situation in life. It just makes it very real.
he really does, Andy, and you're totally right. Like Topol as Tevier, like he does such a brilliant job at balancing comedy with like comedic timing, with wit, with this really strong, empowering, forceful voice. But he's also sensitive. He's also loving, caring, compassionate. He's a very, very well versed character, and Topol just plays him with such charisma. It's almost impossible to see Topol in any other role aside from this one.
Oh, definitely. I would say one of my favorite scenes with him in it is when he's talking to his wife, Golda, and they're in their bedroom, and they're just right before they go to bed, and he's trying to tell his wife about how his daughter can't marry the butcher, but he wants to marry this Jewish man who's a tailor. She loves him, and he fakes having a nightmare, and just his description he gives of this entire scene, it's wow, it's just great.
It was a good scene. I did love that scene. It was very entertaining. Although it's interesting, while I love the scene, it wasn't one of my favorite musical numbers. Like I feel it was just a little. I don't want to say what's the word I'm thinking of?
Over the top.
Not over the top. It was um, not preachy. It was a little too long winded. That's what I'm trying to say. It was a little
Yeah, I
too
can see
long.
that.
But it was still entertaining. Tevier is still a great character. Golda, her reactions are funny and amusing. It still kind of carries you through. I gotta say, my favorite interactions in the movie with Tevier in the movie, it isn't really even with another character or actor on the screen. It's when he looks up in the sky and he talks to God.
Yeah.
And those are really wonderful, reflective moments where he's kind of wrestling with his faith. He's wrestling with tradition. He's wrestling with, the world changing and trying to move with the world. The dialogue is very profound in this movie and how it confronts traditionalism, modernism, and really just kind of confronting change as it happens. It's very, very emotional and it's very, very absorbing.
Well, and it tugs at your heartstrings. I mean, this family is ripped from their home. That you don't know what's going to happen to some of them, because you know what's going to happen if you are a student of history,
Mm-hmm.
and it just tears your heart in that aspect of it. And you can see how that affects Tevye in that aspect, because he loves his kids, he loves his family, and he doesn't want to be split up from them, but circumstances beyond his control are pulling them apart.
Yeah, and that's something I also really enjoyed about this movie. It touches on very serious, very adult like themes and social political messages. But the movie isn't preachy. It's not in your face like, oh my God, look at this, look at this. It's very, very humble. It's very, very much implied. And it really kind of influences its message onto you through entertainment, through wonderful and joyful music numbers, through really compelling character development, really great interactions, dialogue, comedy. It's just thematic is the best way I can describe this movie. It is very thematic and very theatrical in its presentation and in its approach to the story.
Oh, definitely. I totally agree with that. And it doesn't put in on any pretense or preach, like you said. It just says, here's my story. I'm just going to play it out before you. And I think that's what really makes it enduring, you know, decades later.
Absolutely. And that's another thing is a lot of the themes explored in the movie, they're very much timeless, just as much as the characters and the situations in the movie are timeless, and the music as well. I think it's interesting that, like you said, historical scholars will watch this movie, and they'll be enriched through it through their own ways, through their own kind of perspectives of watching it. But really, you don't have to know history to enjoy this movie. It's even if you're completely just oblivious to the context surrounding this movie, it's still very accessible. It's still very entertaining, and it's still very enjoyable in its own terms.
Well, one point I did want to make, and is that you had mentioned the music was by John Williams, and it reminded me, and this is a weird comparison, but I think it fits, but it reminds me a lot of when they did Star Wars in a respect. At the time, George Lucas was pushed to really use like some 80s music. He says, no, I want to use classical music because it's timeless. And I think with the type of music they used, classical and instrumental, it doesn't date the film. I think that also gives it its longevity like it has.
Yeah, it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't date the film. It defines the film.
No.
And what an imprint to leave behind, man. I don't usually quantify movies in like comparison to others, but I honestly don't know that many musicals that like weighs up to the standard of Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
It's like Fiddler on the Roof and West Side Story and Sound of Music.
And
Those
maybe
are like
maybe Phantom.
Oh yeah, Phantom too. But even then, Phantom of the Menace hasn't had like a movie, like a great movie adaptation at the level.
You mean Phantom of the Opera, not Phantom Menace.
Excuse me, I'm gonna do that over. Oh yeah, but even Phantom of the Opera, adaptation wise, film adaptation wise, doesn't reach the level that Fiddler on the Roof does. I mean, Fiddler on the Roof is a great movie and a great musical. Phantom of the Opera is known as a great musical, and the adaptations are just kind of scattered everywhere else.
Yeah. What do you give this?
It's interesting. As much as I love this movie, I've struggled a lot with rating it because I've kind of dipped my toe into both areas. I'm like, do I want to go the full way? Do I want to be conservative? So I'm going to give you an estimate. This movie is a strong 9.5 to a 10.
I would give it 8.5 for me.
8.5, interesting. So what brings it down for you just a little bit? Is it because of the runtime? Because it is very long.
Yeah, I mean, it's with some movies. I've heard it say the mind can only stand what the seat can endure, and it can be a little long. And
I absolutely respect that, and I agree. It is a very long movie. At 3 hours long, this is definitely a sit your butt down, lock and load, and experience the movie. And that's honestly what made me question where I wanted to rate it. But the reason why I rate it so high is I can't think of many scenes that I would have cut down. I mean, the nightmare scene, I would say, is probably the most long-winded. But even then, still very enjoyable. And I think it's funny, despite how long the movie is, it doesn't feel like it wastes its runtime. All 3 hours feels very much earned and deserved. It inhabits the space very well.
Definitely. Well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Critics Corner. So tune in next week, and new release coming your way. We're not going to tell you what it is, so you have to come in and watch. So tune back in, and we will see you next week.
See y'all next week. Have a good one, guys.